The 22nd of June, 1941. Under the codename Operation Barbarossa, Nazi Germany invades the Soviet Union, its ally in the war against Poland. Among the first territories to be occupied by Germany is Belarus, officially called the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic, which prior to the Nazi invasion had been under Russian control for almost 150 years. Within just a week of the invasion, the Germans capture the capital, Minsk, and immediately implement their genocidal policies. Among the first to be targeted are the Jews, who are confined to ghettos, where they face extreme overcrowding, severe food shortages, and starvation. Along with the Jews, Hitler also intends to exterminate the Slavs, the dominant ethnic group in the region, whom the Germans view as racially inferior. As a result of Nazi policies, the local population is subjected to mass murder, shootings, starvation, and forced deportations. These brutal measures aim not only to decimate the local population, but also to clear the way for German colonization, aligning with Hitler's vision of Lebensraum, or living space, in the East. One of the worst atrocities committed by the Nazis on Belarusian territory is the Khatyn Massacre, during which in one day the Germans and their collaborators will burn alive 149 people, including women, and 75 children. However, this atrocity will not remain unpunished, and the perpetrators will pay for this crime with their lives. After Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany on the 30th of January 1933, he immediately began preparing Germany for war. One of his first actions was to rebuild and expand the German military, which had been significantly restricted by the Treaty of Versailles. By 1935, he openly defied the treaty by reintroducing conscription and increasing the size of the army. Additionally, Hitler established the Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, and expanded the navy, significantly boosting Germany's military capabilities. Hitler also focused on strategic foreign alliances to strengthen Germany's position. He forged the Rome-Berlin Axis with Italy in 1936, aligning with Benito Mussolini's fascist regime. This was followed by the anti-Comintern Pact with Japan in the same year, aimed at countering the influence of the Soviet Union. These alliances not only provided Germany with strategic partners, but also signaled its aggressive military intentions to the world. In 1936, Hitler further demonstrated his aggressive foreign policy by remilitarizing the Rhineland, in direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. This bold move went unchallenged by other European powers, emboldening Hitler's expansionist agenda. His annexation of Austria in the Anschluss of 1938 and the occupation of Czechoslovakia in 1939 revealed his relentless drive to expand German territory. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. The early stages of the war saw rapid German advances in Europe with the fall of Poland, the invasion of France, and the evacuation of British forces from Dunkirk in 1940. Following the successful campaign in France, Hitler set his sights on the Soviet Union. On Sunday, the 22nd of June 1941, under the codename Operation Barbarossa, Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union. 3 million German soldiers were supported by Finnish, Romanian, Hungarian, Italian, Slovak, and Croatian troops. For Nazi Germany, this attack was not an ordinary military operation. The war against the Soviet Union was a war of annihilation between German fascism and Soviet communism, a racial war between German Aryans and subhuman Slavs and Jews. Following the invasion of the Soviet Union, the Nazi regime unleashed a campaign of unprecedented brutality. As the German military advanced, Nazi forces, including the SS and Einsatzgruppen, which were Nazi mobile death squads, systematically targeted civilians, particularly Jews, communists, and other groups deemed undesirable by Nazi ideology. Entire villages were wiped out in mass executions, and millions of Soviet prisoners of war were subjected to starvation, forced labor, and summary execution. In response to this devastation, Soviet partisans emerged as a powerful resistance force behind enemy lines. These groups, comprised of Red Army soldiers, local civilians, and communist activists, carried out sabotage operations against the German occupiers. They blew up railways, ambushed convoys, and provided crucial intelligence to the Soviet military. The harsh conditions of warfare in the forests and swamps of the Soviet Union tested their resilience, but the partisans played a vital role in disrupting German supply lines and communications. Their efforts not only hindered the German war machine, but also bolstered Soviet morale during the darkest days of the conflict. In February 1943, the Nazis launched Operation Hornung, deploying a significant number of German troops and local collaborators in the occupied Belarus. Their mission was to root out partisan resistance, destroy villages suspected of aiding the partisans, and eliminate or capture civilians believed to be supporting the guerrilla fighters. The Nazis concentrated heavily on the area around Minsk, where they sought to establish a dead zone, cutting off any potential support for partisans hiding nearby. Among the commanders in this area was Hans Völker, who embodied the Aryan type that the Nazis idolized, having won the gold medal in shot put at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. As a policeman, Völker was promoted to lieutenant for his Olympic triumph by Nazi leaders Adolf Hitler and Heinrich Himmler. Völker also served as a guard in prison camps, and by 1943 he served as one of 3 company commanders in Battalion 118, a unit primarily composed of Ukrainian auxiliaries. They operated closely with the notorious Dirlewanger Brigade, a German unit composed of convicted criminals, many of them murderers and rapists, who had been free to serve Hitler. Its leader, Oskar Dirlewanger, was a convicted pedophile, as in the 1930s he raped a 13-year-old girl from the League of German Girls, and was involved in the molestation of other underage girls. On the morning of the 22nd of March 1943, Hans Völker was traveling in one of 3 vehicles on the Minsk highway when Soviet partisans ambushed the convoy, shooting him in the shoulder. Völker staggered out of his vehicle after being wounded, only to be shot again in the back, this time fatally. 3 more of his men were killed in the fighting that morning, and following the attack, the partisans retreated to the nearby village of Khatyn, located approximately 50 kilometers northeast of Minsk. By the time the Nazi forces and their collaborators arrived, the partisans had already fled the village, leaving only civilians behind. Due to lack of manpower, the Nazis chose not to pursue the partisans and instead called for reinforcements via radio. On their way back, they executed 20 to 25 forestry workers, suspecting them of supporting the partisans. In the afternoon, members of Dirlewanger's unit arrived as reinforcements, joining a platoon from Battalion 118 under the command of the former Red Army senior lieutenant and Nazi collaborator, Grigory Vasura. Together, they surrounded the village. The fact that partisans had killed an Olympic medalist likely influenced the extreme severity of the reprisal awaiting the villagers. Unaware of the earlier attack on the Nazi motor convoy and the death of a German officer, the civilians, young and old, women and children, were forcibly driven from their homes and herded into a shed at gunpoint. Once all the people were inside, the Nazis locked the door, covered the shed with straw, doused it with petrol, and set it on fire. As the flames spread, the trapped villagers managed to break down the door, but those who tried to escape were mowed down by machine gun fire. The burned victims also included women with infants in their arms, as well as a young woman who had been raped by Dirlewanger's men before being locked inside the shed with the others. Approximately 149 people, including 75 children under the age of 16, were killed by burning, shooting, or smoke inhalation. Afterward, the village was looted and burnt to the ground. 8 inhabitants of the village survived, 6 of whom witnessed the massacre, 5 children and 1 adult. Viktor Andreevich Zelobkovich, who was 8 years old at the time of the massacre, was saved by his mother. After the war, he recalled how people during the massacre went out of their minds with fear, realizing they were about to be burned. At one point, he wanted to get up, but his mother pressed his head down and told him, "Don't move, son. Lie still." Something then hit him hard in the arm, and he told his mother that he was bleeding. But she did not answer, for she was already dead. He eventually survived the fire in the shed by taking cover under the corpse of his mother. Another survivor, Józef Kamiński, was the only adult to emerge alive from the massacre, and remembered the horrifying scene as follows. My 15-year-old son Adam and I were near the wall. Slaughtered people fell on me. Those still living rushed past like a wave. Blood was pouring from the bodies of the wounded and the dead. The blazing roof collapsed. The wild, terrible howl of the people intensified. Those underneath were burning alive, screaming and convulsing. The roof was literally spinning around. After the war, some of the perpetrators of the Khatyn Massacre were eventually held accountable and faced justice. In 1946, Bruno Pavel, the officer who ordered the massacre, was prosecuted at the Riga trial and executed. Ivan Melnichenko, a member of the Dirlewanger unit, was fatally shot by agents of the Soviet secret police in February 1946 while resisting arrest. Several collaborators who participated in the massacre were also tried in the 1960s and 1970s, with some of them being executed. The commander of one of the platoons from the 118th Battalion, the former Soviet junior lieutenant Vasil Meleshko, was tried in a Soviet court and executed in 1975. The chief of staff of the same battalion, the aforementioned Grigory Vasura, was tried in Minsk in 1986 and found guilty of all his crimes. He was sentenced to death by the military tribunal of the Belarusian military district and executed in 1987. Today, the State Memorial Complex in Khatyn commemorates not just the massacre in the Khatyn village, but also the 185 other Belarusian villages that were wiped out by the Nazis in a similar manner. To commemorate the rate at which Belarusian lives were lost during the war, at Khatyn, memorial bells ring out every 30 seconds. More than 2 million Belarusians were killed during the Second World War, accounting for approximately 25% of the total population, the highest proportion of any country involved in the war. There were many tears shed for all the victims of the Nazi atrocities. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.